It's time we're gonna take it home. Let's go. Let's go. Do it. Let's go. Do it. Let's go. Make it happen. Let's go. Where there's a Mets man, you'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. Let's go. This is a Mets year for all your Mets here. Let's go. Let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talkin Mets with Rob, and of course another Shea Bridge Show with a co-host today that is a special guest that was nice enough to come on in replace of Hayden Chris from New York Sports Pod. So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, unfortunate Met fans of misery, I don't know what to say anymore. Today's game is just the epitome of the 2023, and my cat just went crazy again. I'm sorry. My cat is going to jump into the camera every now and then. I think there it goes. That's Shea. So it is the epitome of this year with the New York Mets. And my cat's going crazy. I apologize, guys. It's just the same problem over and over again. The pitching. The offense comes again. And this is – I don't know what to say anymore, except I was just on the Twitter space prior to coming on for the last hour. We all know Hector from Washington Heights, Joe from Clark, Bobby, all those guys, Rudy and all those guys, and Mets Nation, all those guys that were on that Twitter space, we were all saying the same thing. Fire Buck. Go ahead. Fire Buck, fire Hefner, fire Epler. What is that going to solve when you got Brigham that can't get the job done, Walker that can't get the job done, 900 other pitchers after Carrasco can't get the job done? We can all talk about the Raley, Ottavino, Robertson not using them today, and I know that's a big talking point. But the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, was that Buck said exactly what I was thinking this whole game. He said, what choice did I have? Because I truly believe last year, Buck seemed to do his own thing, used analytics enough, but didn't use it all the time. This year, and I think this is what I talked on the Twitter space, I said to them that Buck Showalter in September, what happened in September, I think made the front office and Steve Cohen more important than it actually should be when it comes to Buck Showalter. I think they said, listen, Buck, look what happened in September. It was because we didn't use analytics. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. And Cohen put a ton of money into the analytics department. And I think they forced this upon Buck Showalter, even though Buck hasn't had a good season. And this is not throwing him a bone here because he deserves to be fired. But I think there's a bigger picture than just Buck Showalter. Something's going on in this organization. If they're not on the same page, and we'll get to Chris's comments and opinions in a second. I do truly feel that this organization from top to bottom, from Cohen to Epler to the analytics department to Buck, are not on the same page. They might have not all been on the same page last year, but they let Buck, for the most part, run the show. Because there was a lot of times last year when Buck went against the analytics, and we talked about it, and it just – all of a sudden, he's using analytics to his fault. And I do think that it's part of it, not all of it, because Buck can be blamed to the high heavens right now. And I'm all on board firing Buck. Who cares who you bring in at this point? But it's not going to change anything until the players play better. So I'm going to bring it over to the co-host and the guy who was nice enough to come on in short order because Hayden is enjoying his trip. Lucky him. Chris, I don't know. What are your thoughts? What is your opinion? Fire Buck, not fire Buck. Bring in this guy, bring in that guy. What do you got, buddy?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot to say about this team right now. I thought, I was going to be. I did a post game live over on my channel with Nelson and Matt. We kind of discussed some of the points that I'll be discussing here today with you. I thought we were going to be going in here enjoying a nice series win over the Phillies. We saw the debacle that happened in the eighth inning. Eventually, we lose the game. I'm not a big fan of Buck Showalter right now. I think that's the collective philosophy and ideology right now on Mets Twitter, on Mets, whoever's a Mets fan. I don't think that you should be too high on Buck Showalter right now. I do agree with you. It's a perfect storm of crap of what the Mets have gone through in terms of the players not performing, like you mentioned, the front office not having any stability. Obviously, they don't have a president of baseball operations. We don't know if the gap between Epler and Cohen is playing effect into some of the flow down sort of decisions being made in the actual clubhouse. And then obviously Buck Showalter. I'm not sure whose decision it is. I know that there's some talk about the analytics department. I know we had already discussed this before. We have some differences in opinion on the whole analytics Buck Showalter kind of working scenario. But I just don't understand, and I'm sure we'll get into the game, but I agree. Buck Showalter, what really is what's a firing of Buck Showalter going to do? There's two sides of the fence, right? I think the best thing that the Mets front office can do right now is start thinking for next year. I hate to say it, but it's June 25th. And to be honest with you, with the way the NL and the teams that are performing, especially the Marlins right now, who just won again today, the Mets are 9 back in the wild card. It's going to be a really tough road if this team even got it together this next series against the Brewers, and that's probably not going to happen with the way things are going. So we'll see what the deadline brings. I saw the report out there about if Stearns comes on board, is Counsell going to come along with him as a package? The other talk is if the Mets do fire Buck Showalter midseason, is a guy like Eric Chavez going to be in line to sort of take over the team? You saw the Phillies do it last year with Girardi. Thompson took over, took them to the World Series. I'm not saying that the Mets this year are going to be any resemblance to the Phillies of last year. There are some similarities, though, that you can point out, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on in terms of Buck Showalter, of him needing to go, personally, I say let the guy go. I just don't like his nonchalantness. I don't like his arrogance, especially with the way that he talks to the media nowadays. He threw out a quote today to Tim Healy today that just didn't sit right with me personally, especially with the way the Mets are going. Mets are winning. You can say whatever to the media, but it's not time to be a smartass when the Mets are losing. But yeah, regardless of what you think about the Buck Showalter, these players are not performing. To your point, Rob, they're not performing. Regardless of because Robertson should have been in that game, I think, sooner than when he was warming up, right? I think we all can agree to that. But at the end of the day, there's only so many times you can toss Rayleigh, Ottavino, and Robertson back to back to back to back days, right? There's only so many times you can do that. So your early bullpen guys, which I know was going to be a problem ever since that Atlanta Braves series when we talked about what the key to that series was going to be. Throw back to the I think it was the first roundtable podcast that we did. Um, Guys like Josh Walker, a guy like Hartwig, who's actually looked decent, but who knows if he's going to keep that up, right? A guy like Leone, who's up and down now. He had a good spurt there. He looked very hittable today, albeit, he only got that one run against him, the Trey Turner kind of Ricky Henderson-esque run being produced there. But we just don't know what we're going to get out of the early bullpen guys, right? But today was a different circumstance. Today, the Mets needed, if they were going to turn the season around, which I gave them until this series, today is the point where I'm saying Mets are probably not making the playoffs. It's tonight. Maybe I was a little bit generous with my timeline, but I'm going to say it's tonight is what did it for me. But the Mets need to win that game. You don't. I just can't justify getting cute in the game that you need to win and not having both Rayleigh and Ottavino unavailable for one before the game, and also knowing that Robertson is available and not having him warm up in that eighth inning.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand on it. We could talk about whether Buck Showalter needs to get fired all day long. I say you do it just to set the precedent and set the tone, but also that could be bad optics as well. You can agree that that's bad optics on Steve Cohen's part if he makes rash firings instead of waiting the season out. Listen, I think the front office knows this season to wash too. I think from now in between the trade deadline, we're going to see a lot of moves being made that are similar to that Escobar move that we just saw. And I think the Mets are going to be sellers, try to get whatever prospects they can. But I know one thing for a fact is that Steve Cohen is still going to try to put a competitive roster out there next year. There's no rebuild with Steve Cohen. And that's what I will say. So that's my point on it. That's my outlook.
Absolutely. And the whole rebuild, I know there was a couple of people in the comments that were talking about that. There is not going to be a rebuild because I'm going to tell you this right now. For all the people who's like, oh, the young kids, you got to bring the prospects, you got to rebuild, you got to do this and that. If Steve Cohen would have came here when he first owned the team and he had that opening press conference that says, listen, Met fans, our farm system's in shambles. I don't believe this team is good enough. We're going to rebuild. Take your time, stick with me. Make sure you buy tickets by the way. Just come to the games, even though I'm going to rebuild and our team's going to suck. Who would have said that? What fan would have been like, you know what? I get it. We have the richest owner in baseball in North American sports. And if he would have said that, he would have had one foot out the door already with all Met fans. He couldn't do that. And again, you could talk about the Lindor trade and the Lindor contract and say that's crazy. We understand that. But it comes back to the same thing. Now, Steve Cohen, this is the first time, and again, nobody knows how Steve Cohen's going to react. We know about his interview with Joel Sherman. We know about what he said. We don't want to make a quick reaction, a firing and stuff like that. And he said that. That doesn't mean he believes that. All right. He put that out there because he didn't want to set some type of precedent about that. Right. We don't know if he's going to be George Steinbrenner. Do you want him to be George Steinbrenner? Well, if he's going to be George Steinbrenner, then he was blackballed from the league and suspended because of his stupidity, right? So you want a guy like that who, if it wasn't for George Steinbrenner being suspended, the Yankees might not have a dynasty. So you want Steve Cohen to be George Steinbrenner all of a sudden. That's fine. And then somebody brought up Joe Torre is a better manager than Buck. You sure about that? Because he was fired from everywhere he went. And then Joe Torre, after his last firing before the Yankees, said in the interview, and I read this the other day, where he says, I'm not going to manage no other team except for the Cardinals. And then George Steinbrenner got him on the phone and convinced him to be a Yankees manager. Was that Joe Torre? And maybe he was the perfect manager at the perfect time, right? I think we look too much into managing now, considering the fact that analytics took over the game. I mean, I brought up on the Twitter space earlier, in the Mets series, on the Subway Series with the Yankees, the second game, when the Yankees didn't have their three best relievers available, and that was the talk on WFAN the next day, or that night into the next day, that they didn't use their best players. Sometimes you're not going to have that. We don't know, and Buck is never going to admit this, saying Ottavino might have came to him and say, listen, my arm feels tired. I can't go today. Okay, fine. Robertson was already on a rest day, most likely, right? He was going to be here in an emergency situation. You saw him come up just in case for the night. That wasn't the plan. And again, you could talk about the plan. There shouldn't be a plan before the game. There should just be a reaction and what's going on during that game. But baseball teams don't do that anymore. The Tampa Bay Rays are the most analytical team in baseball. They're winning, so nobody talks about the moves that don't work out for them. You see that's what I'm saying. They're more analytical than any of it. They have an analytical coach on the bench in the dugout. So let's not act like this is something that's new. Last year, just because the moves worked last year for Buck, doesn't mean they were going to work this year. How many times last year when, Diaz was the best pitcher and reliever in baseball, we all know that. So it was obvious that, okay, you bring him in the 8th and the 9th, perfect. But you know what? Ottavino also had a 2 ERA last year, so there was a security blanket for Buck Showalter. Who's the security blanket this year besides David Robinson? What happened if Raley and Ottavino was available and they came in this inning and blew it up? Somebody would have complained that they should have brought Robinson in the 8th anyway. You're not going to win an argument or win any type of battle when the results fail. And that is the problem that I have where everybody wants to fire Buck. And again, we can all do that. I have no problem firing Buck. You want to do that? I think he had a terrible year. I don't know if it's all on him or not. I can assure you we'll all find out at some point because the media will probably write a book about it, right? This is going to be the worst team money can buy 2.0. It's probably going to be somebody's going to write a book. We're going to find out about that. What is the real issue? What is the real issue? I still think, and we talked about this on the Mets Roundtable, this show, on the channel itself, and I can guarantee you that other channels talked about this. There's something internally that is a disagreement. If it's Buck and Epler, Buck and Cohen, Cohen and Epler, something's going on here. And they're not on the same page. And I think it's very apparent since basically the first week of the season. And the whole Verlander thing went down, and then you've seen all these weird moves that Buck did not make in 2022. So all of a sudden, Buck's the manager of the year and knows what he's doing in 2022, and then in 2023, he's Luis Rojas. That's a far-fetched dynamic. And I know what Ken talked about when it came to Buck always wears out his welcome, but not this quickly. All right. When with the Yankees, it took him a long time, got fired. They win the World Series. Arizona, same thing. The Orioles didn't get to win a World Series or anything like that, but they were good. But once he left, they were bad. So is that Buck's fault? Who knows? But here's the problem. The Mets scored 6 runs or more and lost 12 of those games. They brought that stat up on SNY. There's a problem. That's pitching. That has everything to do with pitching. And I said that the other day. If you cut that in half, the Mets are a 500 team right now and probably 1 or 2 games out of a wild card, maybe 3 games out of a wild card. And maybe we could be talking about what are we going to do at the deadline to buy instead of most likely be sellers. And then people also brought up about Edwin Diaz. Sorry, Chris, I keep on going on.
Oh, you're good. No worries.
With Edwin Diaz and Twitter Space, I keep on going back to that because I was on there for an hour and a half with everybody. Edwin Diaz, yeah, he could have helped, but would he helped all these games? He pitched 60 innings last year. He had a 3.5 WAR. I hate to use that stat because I'm not analytical at all, but that's 3.5 games. So great, we're only 4 games back. 4 games under 500 instead of 7. Like, how much of a difference? Maybe would it have made a difference today? Would it have made a difference a couple of times during the season? Maybe a handful of times, but not enough to make this team be better. Because the same starters, Diaz can't start. So the same starters that couldn't go 6 innings for the first month of the season, that was a big talking point in April, is the reason why this bullpen is so bad. And they brought it up today. And Chris, I'll make you talk right after this. 5 pitchers after Carrasco was out of the game. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, too, after your thoughts. 5 pitchers, they weren't on the opening day roster. So what does that tell you? The back end, the middle part, the last part of your bullpen is not the guys that started opening day. Besides Raley, Ottavino, Robertson, and Drew Smith should be coming back soon. Everybody else is new. So that just tells you that there's been a revolving door of bullpen arms, and that's a huge problem as well. Yeah, Chris, I'm sorry about that.
No worries. No, I mean, I completely hear what you're saying. To your point, Buck doesn't have the safety blankets to work with that he did last year to sort of compensate any sort of mistakes he made last year. I would maybe disagree. I don't see, maybe minus the 8th and 9th inning and how he handles the rotations there. I don't know if he managed a lot more differently in 2022 than this year. But regardless, this team is not going to, like, they could save Buck Showalter from a disaster last season because they had that grittiness, they had that fight to them. But this year, it's not going to happen. And, all of his inconsistencies, and he has to be, let's be real here, he has to be a damn perfect manager to at least make this team look any sort of bit competent. At the end of the day, we said it here. Buck Showalter is not going to make make these guys perform on the field. He just has to set the team up in order to be in the best position to win the ballgame. That's what a manager does. Anyone can have their own opinions whether he's done that this season or not. And at the end of the day, that's what he's going to be evaluated on. And we'll see soon enough. To your point on the Mets being discombobulated at the top, I agree. The front office, there's something off as the information flows down from Cohen to Epler to Buck and down. There's something off. There's something off. And yes, this payroll, the highest payroll in MLB history, we're going to see a book being written about it. And guess what? We might not hear about it next year. It might be the year after or whenever it is, but we're going to figure out someone, if Buck eventually leaves and this really wasn't on him, he's not making these decisions by himself, we're going to hear about it because he's going to tell somebody who's going to write a book about it or is going to cover it in the media, and we're going to know exactly the full truth and transparency. Right now, we're not going to get any sort of transparency. We're not going to get any sort of answers. Rob, me, you, anybody in the comments, Mets fans in general, this is all just speculation. This is all just speculation. But at the end of the day, I saw the way the clubhouse looked in Max's start yesterday. Shout out to Max Scherzer. We'll talk about some performances here. We'll get into that. But second start in a row, 6 innings plus, exactly what we need out of Max Scherzer. Did you see the way the clubhouse, the energy, the lack of energy when Max Scherzer was done with his outing and he was high-fiving guys coming in? Those guys look dead in there. Energy absolutely gone. It just feels like this. They showed a clip of Starling Marte on the railing after the Mets lost. He was like nodding at somebody on the Phillies. These guys don't even look pissed off. There's no sense of urgency. I really think some of these guys have already thrown in the towel. Tommy Pham's another guy who's always energizing this team in the clubhouse, and I love what I see out of Tommy Pham. But unfortunately, we're probably going to see Tommy Pham out of here. He's going to be gone before the deadline. Yeah. Him and Robertson both. Two guys that have been the Mets' best players this season. Tommy Pham, especially for the last 3 weeks. We're going to see these guys gone. I think that we're going to see slowly that they're going to start to throw in the towel for the season. As much as I hate to say it, and that's not me being negative, that's just me. I really wanted to hold out hope on the season, but I think there's going to be some moves going forward. Eduardo Escobar was just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. And in regards to a rebuild or lack thereof, we talk about rebuild versus should we do it, should we not? A rebuild, just because the Mets are sellers at this deadline this year, and just because this season is a wash, we're getting rid of expiring contracts. Right. We're not getting rid of foundational pieces. Obviously, Lindor, he's got the contract. He's going to be here for the rest of his career, pretty much. Pete Alonso, he's going to be here. He's going to get extended. Senga, he's going to be here. The rest of the guys, we don't know what their future holds. I think Marte, Verlander, and Scherzer are going to be here by default because their contracts are just pretty much unmovable. We know that Steve Cohen is willing to eat the remaining salaries of these players who have the 1 year left on their deals, on their contracts. But he's not willing to – I can guarantee you he's not going to pull a Robbie Cano and eat $25+ million of Verlander and Scherzer's contract for them to be playing elsewhere next season. And I've seen a lot of those takes on Mets Twitter. I think it's a little bit rash. I think if you want to be a contending team again next season, you still need those guys. Yeah. You still need those guys because you're not going to build a whole rotation, through free agency just alone this offseason. So McGill, I don't know if that guy is going to be part of the equation next year. Peterson, I would hope not. Carrasco is going to be gone. The three guys who we know are going to be here next season are Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, who's going to opt into his player option, whether you like it or not, and Kodai Senga. And then I guess you got Quintana too. But I'm not going to evaluate Quintana right now. We haven't seen him at all this season. So let's slow down on the rebuild. Pete Alonso isn't going anywhere. Lindor's not going anywhere. Marte, Verlander, Scherzer, they're not going anywhere. Marte's maybe the most likely, and I saw McNeil being a trade candidate as well. I doubt they move McNeil either. I don't think it's that dire. I'm not going to sit here and assess, Jeff McNeil and tell you to your face that he's a bad ball player because he's had a rough season so far. And I wouldn't do that to anybody else. I don't think Lindor is a bad ball player because he struggled so far this year. But there's a lot of panic right now, and I get it, and it's warranted. But the Mets are going to be sellers. Let's make no mistake about it. But they're not going to get rid of foundational pieces. So let's hold off the talk on that. But yeah, that's pretty much where I stay at. I want to see what I think presumably Stearns is going to bring. I think he's going to bring some stability. I know we talked about that on the Roundtable podcast last week. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that we're sitting here talking about, these lofty expectations coming into the season, and now we're talking about the Mets being sellers at the deadline. And we'll see. I think the only guys that really have value to be moved right now are Pham and Robertson, right? Nobody's really gonna be coughing up anything special for Vogelback. Probably not Ottavino, because Ottavino's not even a shell of what he was last season. So I don't know. Maybe we can move Cookie Carrasco. I thought it was a mistake bringing him back. Listen, I get he won 15 games last year, but that guy's been on a decline of his career. And that is what it is. But yeah, that's my stance on the Mets moving forward. And we could talk about Buck Showalter until we're blue in the face. But quite frankly, I said my piece on him. I'm not a fan of the guy. I don't think anybody should be. I just don't think that Steve Cohen is going to fire him. I just don't think it's going to happen, regardless if everyone wants to or not. I think he's going to stick with them this season. But who knows? We'll really see. We'll see a lot about Steve Cohen's patience and personality here the next couple months, and how much he's willing to endure with the leash that he gives Buck Showalter. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and you know what, and you brought up Carrasco, and picking up that option. I wasn't a fan of it, but you know what? Also, everybody was supposed to be better than what they were, and Carrasco was supposed to be a fifth starter that would give you a really good start and then 3 bad starts. If the rotation was good, nobody would care about Carrasco, and that's the problem. When Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, everybody's struggling, and then it highlights the Vogelbacks, the Canas of the world, the Escobars before Beatty came up. It highlights the guys that you're not supposed to be counting on a daily basis. When the big contract, the stars of your team don't get the job done, guess what? Now the highlight and on the players focus is all going to be on Vogelback, Cana, Escobar, and Escobar's not here, but that's what it was. It was Nito for a while. Everybody was a punching bag because them other guys weren't doing anything. And then when those guys were starting, when Cannon was hot, Pham, who was hot, all of a sudden, all the blame has starting to go to McNeil and Lindor and Alonso now, which they always should, because that is what's going to move. The Mets are not going to be a good team. And again, we're killing the lineup when the lineup scored 6 runs today, and they've been scoring over 5 runs per ball game over the last month. So I'm not trying to kill. Yeah, I'm not trying to kill the lineup, but I'm trying to see what I see on Twitter and everywhere else about certain players. And the thing with Carrasco, he came out on 78 pitches, 76, 78 pitches. I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually fell asleep during that inning when he took him out. So I didn't see that part until after I woke up and I saw the bullpen, and I'm like, what the hell? I thought Carrasco got hurt. That's why, because he wasn't pitching bad. I mean, giving up 3 runs, I take that every day of the week from Carrasco. Why he took him out, I didn't remember what he said in the post interview, but I think it was something where that the humidity, the heat, that he was tired or something like that, whatever it was. But yeah, whatever. The point of the matter is you had to use 5 bullpen arms, and that was the beginning of the end for that game. I think all of us probably thought we were going to find a way to win. And could we just say something about the Phillies? The Phillies aren't that good. All right. The Mets gave away this game. They should have won 2 out of 3. And even in the first game, they had chances of winning that game, even though they didn't have a lot of hits. They had Walker wasn't throwing very well. I mean, all the balls that he was hanging, I mean, you could put clothes on. That's how many sliders and fastballs and even splitters were hanging, and they weren't hitting them. And that was a game that the lineup pissed me off, but that's 1 out of the last 10. And that is something that was annoying to me, because the Mets aren't better record-wise than the Phillies. but I actually think they are because the Phillies are exactly what I thought they were. Again, they were a team that was all right. They didn't play well against the Braves, but they were playing. They played well in June. I think they're 14-7 or whatever it is in June. They're pretty good right now in June. This is the month where they usually get started. Like last year, they're playing really good baseball this year, and they look like a team that can barely beat the Mets. The Mets gave them this game. The Phillies didn't win this game. The Mets
Can I
gave
say
them
something on that real quick? Look at the last couple of series. We talk about the Mets giving away games because that's exactly what they've done.
Yep.
They had an opportunity to win 3 straight series. They gave away this game. They gave away the Astros game,
Yep.
the last one. They gave away the last game of the Cardinals series, which would have won them a series. You're talking about 3 games that would of a rubber match, all rubber matches that you blew. 3 straight series. And then you look at that Atlanta Braves series. They gave away every single one of those games in that sweep. So maybe they only dropped 1 or 2 of those 5 or 6 games. And we're sitting here looking at a different June perspective. But, it is what it is at this point. Good teams find ways to win, even in the face of adversity. That's what the Mets did last year. The Mets faced adversity all season last year in 2022. They found ways to win.
Yeah.
This year, it seems like any adversity that this team faces, it's insurmountable. That's the biggest difference to me. It's just the vibe of and the aura of this team when the crap hits the fan, so to speak. But
yeah, it's crazy to me because you look at you just brought up the Astros game, the Phillies game, the Braves series. Like I said, we gave away a lot of games, and that's all pitching. And you can talk about the 8 shutouts the lineup has, but the lineup turned around. What you needed from this lineup, and somebody brought it up on where the hell was it? Either WFAN or I read it somewhere. I don't remember. But there was somebody destroying Lindor and the lack of clutch hitting. He doesn't do what he needs to do, big moments and everything like that. And then the next call, it was WFAN. Somebody killed him on Lindor on WFAN. And then the next caller said just this. I pulled up his clutch stats. This year he had 60 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, right? He's batting .288. He don't have a lot of home runs, but again, I don't see Lindor as a home run guy, but he has 4 home runs and he has 35 RBIs. Actually, now he has 37 because of what he did today, 36. So he has 288, which find me another guy that actually is batting over 250 with runners in scoring position. I can assure you nobody has more RBIs than him in them situations. And the home runs are not there, but I don't see Lindor as a home run. But his average at 288 with runners in scoring position shows you he's not trying to hit a home run in that spot. Now, with the bases empty, different story. That's why he's batting close to 200. Right? It's a huge different story. He tries to hit home runs. He tries to do something. And you brought up something in the dugout with Scherzer giving that big high five to Alvarez, and he was pumped. And then you just see people walking past like nothing's going on. And I don't know what the morale is, and it looks like it's bad, and it looks like these players know that either whatever's going on internally is really destroying this team, or they just know that they just don't have it this year. And I don't want to say it's very hard to say. It's not fair to say they gave up because I think they have enough pride to say they did it because you saw it today. I mean, they showed pride today scoring 6 runs. They looked pretty damn good, right? When your pitchers continue to fail, how are you expecting these guys in the dugout, in the lineup to feel? I'm sorry, if I'm Pete Alonso, I'm taking every one of those bullpen arms and I'm beating their asses behind the park. Like, I'm sorry. It comes to the point where I don't like bringing me into this scenario when I played in college, but I played in college for a couple of years. I played in high school all 4 years. I'll never forget in a playoff series in college. It was a 3-game series. Game 1, we lost because the pitching sucked. We scored 9 runs. We lost 11-9. Now, it's college. You score a lot of runs, but we knew the guys that were there, we knew the pitching staff wasn't good. So when the starter wasn't pitching well, you're going to use guys that are just as bad. And that is the problem. And I go back to it, like, I was pissed at the pitchers. And I'm like, wait, we did our job. You're not doing our job yet. You're not doing your job yet again. And you expect these guys to, like, do something. Like, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to, give a standing ovation, have a smile on their face, rah a team that is just demoralized by the pitching staff? Because this is not a 1 month stretch where the pitchers haven't been. They've been bad since March 31st. They've been bad. That's the problem. And I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. Like, when your pitching staff and everything goes wrong with your pitching staff and you don't trust anybody coming into a ball game, and you think the shoe's going to drop at any moment, I'm not shocked Beatty messed up that double play ball. I'm not shocked Lindor drops that ball or Nimmo drops that ball or Alonso can't do something on the field or whatever, because they're putting so much pressure on themselves on the field that they know if they don't make that play, their pitchers are going to blow it. And, maybe that was the case in the Beatty situation. It was a weird situation because it looked like he had a handle, and he said after the game he didn't feel like he had a handle, which is fine. Look, errors are errors, but in those spots they can't happen. I don't care if you're a rookie or not. I mean, you're a top prospect in baseball. Do the job, right? You've been doing this all your life. You got to make that play. And that goes for everybody else on this team. And I'm not trying to kill Beatty in that sense, but I'm sorry. Brett Beatty is batting, what, 236? He, power-wise, I mean, he might as well be Jeff McNeil, power-wise. Where is all this power? Remember, all people were talking about, you got to bring up Alvarez, you got to bring up Beatty. We need more power. Well, we're in the top 5 of home runs in the National League. So that's not a problem anymore, and we're still losing. Brett Beatty needs to be better. We need more from him. You can't bat 236 and then continue to say, just play the kids. Because last time I checked, Escobar was at third base when his team was 14-7. Right? Tomas Nido was behind the plate when his team was 14-7. Right? Canna was playing left field. Tommy Pham ass is on the bench. Daniel Vogelback was in the lineup every day, and they were 14-7 in the first 21 games of the year. So don't tell me play the kids, because the same people who say play the kids are the same people complaining that they're losing. But hey, Beatty's playing what, 6 games a week, have a day off yesterday, fine. There was a lefty on the mound, whatever. And he should be in the lineup every single day. Alvarez, different story with a catcher 5 days a week, day game after a night game, whatever. But, and my cat is crying, I'm sorry. So, yes. Sorry, guys, my cat is a little crazy. All right, so he's crying for some reason. And yeah, I just don't understand the fact that we're talking about situations where losing sucks. I don't care if the kids are playing. I don't care if the veterans are playing. You are going to complain no matter what. Easy. You know why I would rather Nido and Escobar? Because the Mets are actually winning during that process. And I'm not saying that Beatty and Alvarez shouldn't be playing. They should. But you're still complaining when these guys are playing. Well, you know what? How many people in this chat over the last couple of weeks saying the season is over? So what are you complaining about? You got Beatty, you got Alvarez, and the last time I checked, they bring up a whole hogwash of arms from the minor leagues that are young. Well, you're bringing up more young kids, and they're there. We don't have a lot. You want Ronnie Mauricio to come up? Great. We're going to lose with him too. So the guy can hit, 350 and maybe show some power, because last time I checked, Alvarez is the only one. Alvarez haven't done anything in the last month. When was the last time he hit a home run? Right? He's another one that had one really good month, and the last 2 months he hasn't. Right? May was his really good month, and April and June is like non-existent. Like, he's basically a good defensive catcher. Here we are again. So let's bring up I don't care if he's 21. Well, what's wrong with Ellie De La Cruz? He's too old? Why can't the Mets bring up a kid and they get a cycle from De La Cruz like that kid did? Right? When the Mets bring prospects up, either they're terrible or they're okay. They're never that good as advertised. Francisco Alvarez was just like Ellie De La Cruz, the number 1 prospect in all of baseball. Why haven't I seen that? I seen 1 month of a flash, and then he becomes a 200 hitter again. Right? Ronnie Mauricio, who the hell? He might be Al De La Cruz. He might be. I don't think Mark Vientos is very good, but bring him up too. And then people are still going to complain when they lose. So you can't complain about losing when a month ago you guys saying the season was over, and now the young kids are playing, and they're playing a lot more often, and they're still losing. So I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to say. And you want to bring up the kids? Bring up the kids. I don't even care anymore, because all I'm going to hear on Twitter when they lose again is how bad this team is. Well, keep on bringing up the kids, because as Chris said, and I agree with him, there will not be a rebuild. So these kids better make it, because if these kids are not what we think they are, the Mets are really in trouble, because Alonso, McNeil, and Nimmo clearly aren't the answer at this point, because those are your three. That's your core, right? You always talked about the Yankees core four or other teams' cores that they have. McNeil, Nimmo, and Alonso, they are the veterans. They are the core of this team. If Beatty and Alvarez aren't as advertised, we are very much in trouble. Because what do you think they're going to do? The organization is going to do if Beatty and Alvarez don't work out?
Well, we need to see that happening. And I know I don't necessarily agree with the Mets are in this position because of the kids. I don't think that I buy into that. But at this point, people have given up on the season before. I did not give up on the season. Today I've officially said, I've come on the show here and I said that this team is not making the playoffs. So you might as well keep playing these kids. Like there's like these veterans at the trade deadline, they're going to be gone.
They're going to be gone. Yeah.
They're going to be gone. So we're going to see Alvarez. We're going to see Alvarez. We're going to see Beatty. If I'm, the Mets front office, I'm trading Canna as soon as possible, moving McNeil to left field and playing Ronnie Mauricio, because what do we have to lose at this point, regardless?
Yep.
But going into this, I don't think that the kids like Beatty, getting time over Escobar. I mean, Escobar was how bad for a stretch of period.
Yeah.
He caught fire once he started getting into that platoon role, and Canna started to show a little bit more flashes in the platoon role. Pham started to show more flashes in a platoon role out in left field, but now he's playing every day. Like these guys, weren't gonna make this team as everyday players the way the season was going before. They could have maybe last year. Escobar was an everyday player last year. Canna was an everyday player last year, pretty much. But I don't see that. I did not see that repeating with the way things are going for the first month and a half. I did not see that repeating. But honestly, why not play the kids now? They've been playing the kids. They haven't been playing the kids. They've been platooning the kids. Mm-hmm. And we all know that a platoon is not going to help a rookie, a 21, 22-year-old at the major league level. We saw with Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos struggled. Do I think Mark Vientos is a long-term option for this team moving forward? No, I don't. I don't think so. But if you're not going to trade him, you know that they already brought him up once. He struggled a little bit in the platoon role. Maybe that brought his trade value down around the league. I don't know, but you might as well play these kids. If they are – see, that's another thing. We don't know if the front office – how much this front office values these kids either. Like, in my philosophy, if the front office thought Mauricio – and trust me, I want Mauricio on this team. I don't want any part of trading Mauricio. I don't think that makes sense at all. Regardless of whether he has a position on this team or not long-term, I like and I value a switch hitting – power guy capable of hitting 25 homers at the major league level. But you would have thought that we would have seen him up if the Mets truly thought that he was going to be part of the long-term solution. Because at this point, if the season's a wash, get these guys experience. We need a large enough sample size to really evaluate these kids. That's why Alvarez started off hot. I wasn't too quick to judge him. I was hyped. I was really happy he was performing. But I knew that was unsustainable for a rookie. It was inevitable. Beatty's struggling now too. It's inevitable with these kids to struggle. Not everybody out there as a rookie is going to do what Ellie De La Cruz is doing right now. Because trust me, Ellie De La Cruz, with as much hype as he's getting right now, and he's a stud, he's going to go down and he's going to catch a cold streak soon too. And people are going to be singing the same tune. So I don't necessarily know that, we should be prioritizing. I'm not sure that was your point, but I'm just saying like the whole Nito and Escobar thing versus the kids. I don't think that was your point, what you're trying to get across. But
Yeah.
I get the sentiment that, no matter what, it's a New York fan base. People are going to complain regardless. 100%. Definitely agree with that. I see it every day. I just saw someone in the comments ask, well, why are we getting two AA type caliber players right now for a vet like Eduardo Escobar instead of an
That's
MLB
a
ready
lot.
reliever? Maybe they've already started to wave the white flag. Maybe they want to. Maybe they've given up. Because to be honest, I'd rather take the two AA starting pitchers to give this farm system that lacks starting pitching depth over a win now type return for the Mets.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be going after any sort of win now type returns.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We can still put together a competitive roster next year,
Yes, we can.
regardless if we get MLB ready talent for these vets that are going to be hitting their way out the door. So this is Cohen's way of building more depth in the farm system so that when the Mets, if they're in a similar position to where they are next year as this year, where they have a revolving door of pitchers, some guy goes down, maybe these depth pieces that we bring in this year are going to be playing integral roles. Not saying a AA guy is going to be ready by next year, but you get what I'm saying, over the next course of the next couple years.
Yeah.
So that's my whole point. That's what I wanted to say about the kids. Beatty, his error today was inevitable. I mean, these kids are not going to be perfect. Everyone should expect growing pains when these rookies are going to be playing. A good team, right? Brett Beatty did not make Jeff Brigham hit 2 or 3 batters.
No.
Like, I get it. The inning probably looks completely different if that double play is made. But at the end of the day, Jeff Brigham also has to recoup from that and go out there and throw strikes to the next batter. So it's a tandem. Like I said, it's a perfect storm of stuff that's been going wrong with this team. And in today's game, you can't point it on just Brett Beatty's error. You can't point it on Jeff Brigham. You can't just point on Josh Walker. It's everything as a combination piling up into one perfect storm.
Yeah.
And you put the cherry on top of Buck's managing of the bullpen. That's just
Yeah.
the cherry on top out of everything else.
Yeah.
Right? Because Buck Showalter, at the end of the day, all he can do is put this team in a position to win a ball game, the best position possible. Did he do that today? In my humble opinion, he did not do it. He failed as a manager today. But at the end of the day, regardless if Josh Walker's out there, I get it. He's a revolving door kind of guy. Really should be in the minor leagues at this point, right? Like, he shouldn't even be up in the major leagues, to be honest. I hate to say it. I don't want to, rain on anyone's career or anything like that. But a guy like Brigham, too, he's been faltering the last couple of outings as well, from what I've seen out of Brigham. But these guys still have to perform. If they're going to be getting paid a major league salary, regardless of who Buck Showalter throws out there, they need to perform. But I also think Buck Showalter, like I said, you can't just blame Buck Showalter. Let's blame Josh Walker for loading the bases with no outs.
Yep.
We can put some blame on Brett Beatty for his error. That can't happen. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or not. That cannot happen because you're at the major league level. Doesn't matter what your age is. Jeff Brigham,
I agree.
you can't do that. You cannot hit 2 or 3 batters in a row, walk bases loaded, and give up that lead at that point. Like, it's a perfect storm, Rob. And I just don't like, yeah. And is Buck Showalter kind of the scapegoat right now? Guess so. Maybe
he's
you
the
could
only
say
talking
that.
point, though. He's the only talking point.
And I think that's where
I have.
I think that's your problem. I think that's where people are getting misconstrued, that maybe you're saying that we need to start blaming the players as well. And that's like, to me, it's a perfect storm. Everybody's at fault.
I think everybody's at fault. And I know Easy, me and him are having back and forth on the comments, and I want to address this. This is not blaming the kids. We're not losing because of the kids. That's not the point I'm trying to make. This is a team effort, right? I'm not blaming the little bit of kids that are in the bullpen right now blowing games. They're like you just said, Walker. Why isn't nobody killing Walker? I mean, he basically put the bases loaded there. But you know what? I'm not expecting Walker to be a dominant pitcher because what is he? We don't know. He got put in a spot where he probably is successful in AAA and maybe didn't be successful today. That's it. The issue that I'm saying is the point when it comes to the kids is the fact that all I've heard from everybody, and this is not just one or two people, everybody, I'd rather lose with the kids. Why are you saying that in May when there's 100 games left, 112 games left, 110 games left, right? Beatty and Alvarez have been playing a ton. They've been playing every day. So this platoon stuff that I know, Chris, you just talked about, that's only Vientos. That wasn't Beatty. That wasn't Alvarez. Because, and I brought this up the last time, Beatty and Alvarez won the job when they were platooning. When I agree with everybody and saying, just play the kids. Eduardo Escobar and Nito are terrible. Play the kids. Right? When everybody wanted Buck to play the kids, he wasn't playing the kids. The two kids that are floundering right now, which is to be expected. They're young, right? They won that starting position. Beatty started to perform, won that job in a platoon role. And that's why when I talk about people with Vientos, and I know me and you agree about Vientos, we don't think he's the guy. But when Vientos got that platoon opportunity, and unfortunately for him, he sucks at every defensive position. So his platoon is the DH. Unfortunately for him, there's other guys, Vogelback, Pham was hot when Vientos was up. So it kind of put a stop to him playing every day. And I get it. Listen, Vientos hit that home run when he first came up, played the next day, and didn't play for like 2 days straight. That's on Buck. And I called Buck out on that. But here's the problem. Beatty and Alvarez have been playing every day. And this is not the kids' fault that they're losing. It's far from the kids' fault. It's the Nimos, the Martes, the Lindors, the Alonso, the McNeils, and the pitching staff, which is on a totally shit list of a level. And it's absolutely embarrassing that this pitching staff is so bad. When it comes to the kids, I'm all for playing the kids. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I have no problem with playing for the kids, but don't expect to win because they were brought here to save the season. That's what the organization thought. They didn't. Beatty came up because Escobar was terrible. Alvarez came up because of an injury, right? Alvarez, there was talk about him going down a couple of weeks ago, right? So it was about winning. Was it for the organization or was it about salvaging the shitstorm that was about to occur? So they brought up the kids because they didn't want people to say they're losing because they're not doing enough. That's why Epler made that rash decision of bringing up Mark Vientos. That's why Alvarez came up when they could have brought up some veteran from the minors. They brought up to shut up the fans because they knew these kids weren't going to be the savior of this season. If they were going to lose, they were going to lose because of everybody else. They brought up the kids not because they thought that everybody was just going to be like, oh, great, they brought up the kids. Good job. Now we're going to win, right? What was on Twitter? Oh, we got to bring up Beatty. Look at the power he's showing. This team needs power. So you're expecting these kids to win us ball games. And they're not doing that. Not a lot of fault of their own. But what were you expecting in May when you had to bring up these kids? When you expect to bring up these kids in May and early June or April, in Alvarez's case, it's not because of if the team is playing well, they wouldn't be here. So it's a failure, and now you need saving of a season in May and June from these guys. And if that wasn't going to happen, all right, I can assure you at some point the Reds are not going to be as good as they are right now. Right?
That's not a knock on them, though. That's not a knock on – that shouldn't be a knock on the kids. Like, the fans, yes, I agree that they thought – like, I don't know whether they thought there was going to be a saving grace or not. But at that point, Escobar and whoever was catching, I'm pretty sure it was Nito, they were horrible.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
but they should have never thought about being the saving grace because that's not fair to them at all. That's not what they were brought up in theory from the front office to do, really. I think that was that – just wanted to sorry to cut you off, but I just think that's an unrealistic expectation as being quote-unquote saviors.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, though. But I'm telling you right now, why else would they want – because you can't say in May that the season is over. That's why you want to bring up the kids. Fans weren't saying that the season was over. So you were expecting, not you, but they were expecting, a lot of fans was like, bring up the kids. They got to be better than this. Well, you expected them to help this team win ball games. Well,
And for a while they were, though. For a while they were. For
how long?
a little bit. For a little bit they were.
A little bit, yeah, but it wasn't a lot. Like clearly, I mean, we're 7 games over under 500. We haven't won it. We'll lose 6 series in a row, 7 series in a row. Like this is not their fault. I want to make this clear for people who are trying to kill me in the chat. I'm not saying the kids are the problem. They are far from it. This is not their fault. Verlander and Scherzer in the first 2 months, it was their fault because Verlander didn't pitch and Scherzer couldn't get out of his own way, along with Quintana being out. The problem that the thing that frustrates me the most is the fact that now Met fans are saying I'd rather lose with the young kids. Of course we would. Who wouldn't? At this point, we're losing anyway. Bring up the kids. But on May 15th, when you say bring up Mark Vientos or bring up the other kids or Ronnie Mauricio, these guys weren't going to be the savior. And if you thought the season was over in May 15th, which is idiotic, unless your whole rotation is out and injured for the rest of the year, then I can say, okay, fine, like a 2016 type of situation where the Mets found a way to make the wild card. But the problem that I have is the fact that a lot of people were talking about bring up these guys because they were mashing in AAA. Thought that was going to be that was going to replicate in the majors or at least close to it, and they brought and that they felt like it was going to be the savior. I don't believe that they might have not really thought that as like a long-term solution, but they thought it in the fact that they can't be worse than Nito and Escobar, which they clearly not. They're better than Escobar and Nito.
Stems from though? You know where that stems from, though? If we're talking about hindsight back in May, that stems from the collapse that the Mets had in 2022 while Escobar was playing every day, while Nito was playing every day. Escobar had a great September last year, but let's not forget, he sucked last year as well for a good chunk of the season. And so if we're talking about hindsight, new season, new aura, new expectations from Mets fans, when you have a season where you gave up the division in 2022, you lost the wild card series on what was a promising year, and you pretty much run it back with Tomas Nito and Escobar as the starters. And this season starts off eerily similar to the collapse that happened at the end of last season. I kind of get where Mets fans are like, let's bring up the kids because, listen, we saw what happened last year with the division collapse, 101 games to 101 games, but we collapsed the division at that point.
Yeah. The
end result was what it was. So I'm half on it. I completely understand your point, but I don't think it was ever a good idea, regardless of whether they had options in the offseason to address it or not. It was never a good idea to run it back with Escobar at third base or Nito at catcher.
I 100%
it was never realistic.
Look, I was at spring training with Hayden in February. And I watched the Mets scrimmage game that the fans were allowed to go to, and Beatty and Mauricio looked like stars. I even brought this up on the stream that me and Hayden had in Port St. Lucie. I said Brett Beatty needs to be the starting third baseman. I even said that he needs to be up with the team. He was playing too well not to deserve to play in the beginning of the season. But let's not make no mistake about it. Was Beatty really going to make a difference if the pitcher wasn't going to do well, if he came up in the beginning, or even if Alvarez would have made the team? I don't think it would have been maybe 1 or 2 game difference. Maybe they would have won a game here or there, but it was always the pitching. If we had where the argument where I would agree with everybody, if the Mets were holding pitching prospects down. I'm talking about like if Mike Vasil was ready to go, if Hamill was ready to go, if Calvin Ziegler was ready to go. If these guys were ready to go and they left them down there for this dumpster fire over rotation, then I would have had a real problem because that could have changed the season. Brett Beatty, Alvarez, Mauricio, and Vientos could have been up at the beginning of the year and be starters. This wasn't helping the pitching staff. So who cares if they would have came up on March 31st or if they would have came up on May 15th? It wouldn't have mattered because the pitching wasn't there in the minor league system. And that's why when people got on these guys in May saying to bring up Beatty, bring up this guy, what was that going to change? All it does is make it look a little bit better. Like you basically put in makeup on a pig. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing, right? The pig is still a pig, right? you put makeup on me, I still look like Rob, hopefully. Right? It goes back to the same, like I said, rational moves, rational opinions are what we do, right? We're fans. We're psychotic with this stuff. That's why people are staying on the stream and we're talking over and over again. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean that we don't give a shit. Of course we do. But we're all going to have difference of opinions, right? You with the kids and everything like that, that's great. We can disagree. I love this. I love disagreeing. That's the fun part of this. But here's the problem. The fact of the matter is there are 7 games under 500. There are a shitload of games out of the division, a shitload of games out of the wild card. It is June 25th. It hasn't even been warm in New York yet. And this team could be done. I'm going to the game tomorrow. I'm gonna get in touch with Hector from Washington Heights for all you WFAN fans. Because I know he's going to the game tomorrow to get the Black Panther Starlin Marte bobblehead, which I'm a bobblehead guy, as you guys know, obviously. So once again, guys, the fact of the matter is the fact that I'm one of the idiots that still go. And again, I killed a lot of Mets fans for not going to that Tuesday Yankee Subway Series game. I killed them. But I don't expect big crowds anymore. Why? It's a bobblehead, so you might get 30,000 because people want the bobblehead. It's actually a special edition Marvel one, so it'll probably be packed because of that, not because of the team. But I'm going to be the first one to tell you, you got tickets to that game, don't sell them. Go to the game. Boo the shit out of them because they deserve it. The New York Mets are, I don't care how pessimistic or negative you are prior to the season, or Mets fan, negative you are for the with this team, nobody could have predicted that the New York Mets would be in this position. Now, I don't think anybody thought we were going to win 100 games this year. I didn't say that. If I'm not mistaken, I think I had 94 wins for this team, which is whoops, But I mean, I don't think anybody had Arizona, the Reds, and the Rays winning divisions here. Like, I mean, that's crazy to me, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, nobody had that. And the Marlins in a playoff spot, 10 games over 500, right? So nobody predicted this. Did people think that we were going to be as good as last year? No. But I was thinking we were going to be probably a high 80 to low 90s win team. I think that can be expected, a little bit of a downfall. I expect that. But let's not act like, I mean, we are the Mets. We shouldn't be shocked anymore. This team has made the playoffs 8 years in their existence, made the postseason back-to-back years twice in team history, 99, 2000, 15, and 16. All right? I wasn't around for the glory days of the 80s when the Mets actually ran a town for like 3 years. I wasn't around in 69. I might look like I'm that old because I feel like shit because of this team, and I'm losing my hair because of this team. And I need a companion and a cat because the Mets don't make me happy at all. And this is the problem that we are. I'm in the generation. I'm just after that late 80s magical 86 year and the cool 80s years when it was fun to be a Mets fan. I dealt with 2000. I had to go into school with Yankee fans wearing World Series champions, knowing that they beat the Mets. Chris, I don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming you're younger than me. I hope so because I already look very old. So I know. How old are you, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 24.
Oh, Jesus Lord. So you even dealt with more crap. So you dealt with the latter years of the Wilpon era with Madoff, which was probably your glory years of really becoming really into being a Mets fan. So you dealt with the shit that this team started out to be. And I'm not saying that Cohen is a great owner or a bad owner. We have no idea yet, right? This is the first time this year in 3 years. 2021, everybody gave a pass because everything was in shambles. Everything was turning, new organization, new people. So 2021, you could throw out the window. 2022, first official year where Cohen actually flexed his muscles and they had a 101 win season. Second year number 2, which is technically year 3, but year number 2 of this, of flexing his muscle, it's a dumpster fire. So we can't kill Cohen until we see what he does. Because if he fires Hefner and Buck tonight, And tomorrow, Eric Chavez is the interim coach, manager, and the Billy Epler is gone. Well, guess what? Who are you blaming now? And that's where I am at this point. The point of the matter is, it's because we are so frustrated because we thought we had a win. Excuse me, a win in the bag today, and a series win, which would have been excellent for coming home for a 7-game set against the Brewers and the Giants. So, Chris, to finish it up, I don't know if you want to give your final thoughts of this team of the season. The depth of their team, the final nail in the coffin. Let me know what you're thinking. You already brought it up about you think the season is over, but what do you want to see going forward with this team, from this manager, from this owner, from this GM?
Yeah, I think the Mets are not making the playoffs this year. I think I'm pretty confident in that, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. It's 9 games, and we'll see. I mean, there is a lot of baseball left to be played. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that. Whether that's good for maybe making up some lost ground, or bad because we're just going to keep sliding down the hill. We'll see about that shortly. We'll see what the answer to that is, because I just don't know with this team. Like we said, it's not like they've been getting blown out of these games. You look at these 1-run losses, 2-run losses. We're not getting blown out of these games. We're losing. We're finding ways actively to lose these games, the players and the manager both. So it's not like we're a terrible, horrendous team where we have no talent whatsoever. We can't, we're putting ourselves in positions to win the games. Offense is doing so. The pitching is just not on the same page. Regardless, play the kids. I want to see Mauricio up. If he's truly part of the solution and the long-term outlook of this team, if the front office truly believes that, I want him up tomorrow. I don't care. I want him up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't need to see Vogelback anymore. I know what I'm going to get at Vogelback. I don't need to see him anymore. He's not going to be here next year. If Mauricio is staying and you're not trading him, because I think it would be a little foolish to trade him. And I can only imagine what Mets Twitter is going to look like if you trade him. Then bring him up. Who cares if he makes errors at second base? Who cares? At this point, who cares what happens with these young kids? They're going to make errors. We saw it today. It's going to keep happening. We're going to see them struggle at the plate. Play Beatty against the lefties. I don't care. He's going to need to do that in his career anyways. Yeah. If he's sticking around, which I'm sure he is, him and Alvarez both are going to be here. He needs to see lefties, right? We're not going to give him an off day against lefties for the rest of his career. That's not plausible. This is not. So I need to see if Buck Showalter is sticking around, which I think he will. Am I on board with him leaving and being fired to maybe light a fire under these players' butts? Yeah. I don't care because, like you're saying, what is there to lose? We can see Eric Chavez come up and they can still keep losing. The Mets fans will probably blame him too, but guess what? There was at least some sign of life from the front office up top, because we don't know what happens up in that cloud of front office. We don't know what the communication process is like. We don't know. But play the kids. I want to see Buck if he's around. I know we're not going to see it happening. I know we're going to see the same old excuses in the post games that we've been seeing from Buck Showalter as well. But if this season's a wash, if you're bringing up Mauricio, if you're playing these kids every day, manage like that. Stop platooning the players. I'm not saying that it's been a massive platoon. Beatty's been getting his playing time. Alvarez has as well. But manage in a way that, I'm not saying manage to lose the game. I'll never say that. That's just not a part of sports. But let these guys make mistakes. Let them make mistakes. It's okay. If we're truly going to sit here as a collective fan base and say that we are okay, not that we're okay with it. We want to see the Mets in the playoffs, right? But that we're okay with the kids playing every day now and making these mistakes because we don't think that they have what it takes as a collective team this year, then Buck Showalter also needs to buy into that if he's going to be managing this team for the rest of the season. Do I think Buck Showalter is here come next season, opening day next season? I don't think so. I do not think so. Especially if Stearns is coming in. He might want his own guy, whether it's Counsell, whether you call it Beltran. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. But I don't think Buck Showalter is going to be here at opening day next year. that's all I have to say. Honestly, at this point, the Mets have been finding their own ways to lose games. These teams like Cardinals, they're not better than the Mets. You just said it on this stream. The Phillies, they're not better than the Mets. They're not better than the Mets. Let's keep it real. They're not better than the Mets.
Thank you.
Um,
They're not.
would I like the season to turn around? Would I like to go on a winning streak? The Mets start an 8-game win streak tomorrow. Sign me up for it. I'm taking that all day, every day. Because guess what? If they do that, everything that we said today in this post game and this live stream, we're going to be held accountable, and we're going to be held to that standard the rest of the way. And me and you, as creators and people watching us, I can't sit here and say, tomorrow, why is Brett Beatty playing, against a lefty and, and whatnot, because he's been historically struggling with lefties, and I'd rather see a righty because of matchups. When I've been singing a whole different tune this whole entire season, I'm not going to switch up like that. If a win streak happens, it happens. Do I think it can happen? Yeah, of course I think it can happen. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But listen, crazier things have happened. That's not being a false positive. It's baseball, man. This is the crazy game. It's a long season for a reason. Crazier things have happened. I don't know. I don't think the Mets have what it takes to make a run. But I'd like to see one because I'm holding out until football and basketball season start with my Giants and Knicks. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. That's all I have to say on this team. And I know everyone in the comments, I am not Hayden. I am not Mets Talk with Hayden. I am filling in for him today. I am Chris from CP New York Sports Pod. Everybody's been calling me Hayden in the comments. I just want to make it known that I'm not Hayden. I don't want Hayden to be held accountable for whatever I said today. That's on me. So I just want to make that known.
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate you guys coming on and replacing Hayden for the day. And again, when Hayden can't come on, you always you want to be the replacement. That's cool. Listen,
Definitely.
You're 100% right about that. I tell you right now, I would love, me and you would have egg on our face in 7 days if the Mets go on a 7-game winning streak. I'll gladly take it. Listen, I took all the blame for McNeil last year. Everybody killed me for McNeil last year that I did not. They should have traded him in the offseason after the 2021 season. And then he has the Biden title, and now everybody gets after me. And now he's having another terrible season. So again, we all want to be wrong here, right? I want to see Verlander pitch a perfect game tomorrow. Or I think he pitches tomorrow, right? I think it's him and Peterson back-to-back. Verlander pitches a perfect game tomorrow. It's not going to help us record-wise, but great. That'd be fun. I'll be there, so I would like to see that. But come on, guys. Like, we all know, we've all been there, where we said something that we believed at that moment, and a week later we're not really backtracking, but we're like, yeah, you told me so. Because there'll be somebody in the chat that has a lot of positivity. I don't know where they are, but they're there somewhere, that are going to come on next week if the Mets win all 7 games at home against the Brewers and the Giants, and they're 2, 3, or 4 in the playoffs mix again. And they're going to be like, look, we told you so. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but who the hell knows? It's baseball. There's 90, 88 games to go or whatever it is. Listen, guys, the Mets are in trouble. We all know it. The Mets are still in this 16-game stretch, now 13 games, where they're playing teams in front of them. The Brewers and the Giants are right there in front of them. Beat them. You're going to tell me that the Brewers are better than the Mets? I mean, they just got passed by the Reds, for crying out loud. They're not that good. Beat them. You should have beat the Phillies. You didn't. Boo-hoo. Cry me a river. You come into Citi Field. Show some fucking heart. How about that? Everybody. That goes from Buck Showalter to Eric Chavez to Jeremy Hefner to Verlander on the mound to any other moron in the bullpen. Everybody on the field. To Marte, to Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil. Everybody. Show some heart. Show like you don't want your season to end. Because if you have a bad stretch at home, you are going to have an entire summer to be playing baseball in front of Mr. and Mrs. Met and Steve and Alex Cohen, because nobody's going to be going to the game except for my dumbass and a couple of others that have season tickets. That's it. And that's the way it's going to be. So with that said, I want to thank Chris once again. Make sure you check it out. His channel, all his good stuff. You got anything coming up with your channel, buddy?
Yeah. I mean, I did the post game live today after the game today. It's on my channel at CPNY Sports. Go ahead and subscribe over there. I'm gonna be doing post games, continue to do post game lives. I got a new show starting up. It's Interstate Mets, the Interstate Mets Report with Amish Country Mets fan who's in the chat over here, Nelson. That's debuting on both of our channels at 5 p.m. on Tuesday. We're gonna do, it's a Mets day after, so we're gonna be going recaps. We're gonna be talking a lot of good stuff, a lot of similar stuff to what we've been talking on here. Obviously, doing the Roundtable podcast as well moving forward. If you ever need a replacement for the Shea Bridge, if Hayden can't make it, please let me know. I love talking Mets, whether it's good or bad. I'm going to be sitting here making these videos, and we're going to be sitting here discussing. And yeah, you're right. If the Mets go on a win streak and cut this deficit in the wild card, we're going to get held accountable. But that's part of doing this. Like right now, we're calling it like it is. And at this point in time, this team is what they are. So completely agree. It's been really fun. I appreciate you having me on, Rob.
Absolutely. Once again, guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check out Chris's channel and everything he's got going on. You like his takes. I seen it in the comments. Even though you thought he was hating, he's not. He's Chris. So make sure you check him out and keep on. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to his channel. Trust me. We don't have these people on my channel just because they're Mets fans. You got to know your stuff, and he does, of course, with many others. So once again, tomorrow, I believe Chris should be there tomorrow night, roundtable. Yeah. All right, so Chris and probably most likely Hayden and a couple of others will join the Mets Roundtable podcast 8 p.m. on Monday tomorrow. I probably, well, you know what? I might be at the game, so I might give you the access to put up the podcast or whatever you guys want to do. If somebody wants to run it, I'll give you access to that. So with that said, guys, the New York Mets are 7 games under 500. They're in trouble. They got a 7-game homestand, and it's probably going to be very bad in the fan sense with not a lot of people showing up. Well, there might be a lot next couple of days, 2 bobbleheads days in a row. But it could be bad. It could be really good. It could get back to 500, close to it. They got 7 games at home, 7-game winning streak. You're back at 500, and now we have a whole different set of season once again. So with that said, everybody have a great night. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. Thanks once again to Chris. Everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets. I will see you guys next time. Good night, guys.
Let's go Mets.